Hello, and welcome all to Movie Hunter, the show that tracks down the quality of all sorts of movies. My name is Hunter, and today in the 43rd episode, our target is Muppet Treasure Island, produced by Walt Disney Pictures and Jim Henson Productions, and distributed by Buena Vista Pictures Distribution. After the release of The Muppet Christmas Carol in 1992, it was decided that the next theatrical Muppet film would be another adaptation. Co-writer for the film, Kirk R. Thatcher, stated, quote, "There were a whole bunch of ideas out there, and I was most keen on Treasure Island and a King Arthur story, with medieval dragons and knights. In the end, we all agreed as a group that Treasure Island was a better story for the Muppets to take on." In the first draft, Gonzo and Rizzo were to play the main character, Jim Hawkins, split into two roles, Jim and Hawkins, respectively for Gonzo and Rizzo. However, there was fear that they wouldn't be able to hold the emotional heart of the film, thus a human actor was instead chosen to play the protagonist, with Gonzo and Rizzo simply as companions. In May of 1993, Brian Henson officially announced that the Muppets would appear in a loose adaptation of Treasure Island. Frank Oz, a longtime Muppet performer, was unavailable to be on set due to conflicts with his directing career. Because of this, Kevin Clash puppeteered his characters, being Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, Sam the Eagle, and Animal, and Frank Oz would voice the characters in post-production. The film released on February 16, 1996 and made $47.2 million on a budget that I was unable to find an agreement on, with most sources stating either $31 million or $5 million, so I don't know what to make of that. The director was Brian Henson, and the screenplay was by Jerry Joel, Kirk R. Thatcher, and James V. Hart. It was based on The Muppet Show by Jim Henson and the novel Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. The producers were Brian Henson and Martin G. Baker. The cinematography was by John Fenner, and the editor was Michael Jablow. The score was by Hans Zimmer, and the songs were by Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil. The cast includes Kevin Bishop, Tim Curry, Bill Colony, Jennifer Saunders, and David Nichols. The Muppet performers include David Goelz, Steve Whitmire, Frank Oz, Jerry Nelson, Kevin Clash, Bill Barretta, John Henson, Louise Gold, and Don Austin. The film's Wikipedia page also tells what is perhaps the most interesting story that I've read for one of these reviews, about how the Hormel Food Corporation, the creators of the lunch meat Spam, tried to sue after the release of the film, over a minor character named Spam. The judge dismissed the trial after a failure to provide proof of damages and noted, quote, "One might think Hormel would welcome the association with a genuine source of pork." What's further interesting is that this minor character would appear as a racing boss in the game Muppet Race Mania, where he was instead named Pig Chef, presumably because of the attempted lawsuit. The film opens with a pirate named Captain Flint, who buried his treasure on an island and then executed his crew so that he alone would know its location. Flint then died before he ever reclaimed his treasure, and now his map, whose whereabouts are unknown, is the only thing that can tell where the treasure is. We then meet Jim Hawkins, a worker at the local inn, alongside his co-workers Gonzo and Rizzo, listening to their friend Billy Bones tell Flint's tale, and he tells them to beware of a man with one leg, who even Flint feared. That night, Billy Bones' old crewmate, Blind Pew, arrives to deliver Billy the black spot, marking him for execution. Billy quickly packs his stuff with the help of Jim, but suffers from a heart attack. In his last moments, he tells Jim that he was part of Flint's crew and he took his map, which is why they are after him, and he gives the map to Jim, telling him to find the treasure and keep it from the one-legged man. Jim, along with Gonzo and Rizzo, go to a shipbuilder, but instead find his half-wit son, Squire Trelawney, portrayed by Fozzie Bear. Trelawney agrees to fund the expedition, coming along with them, as well as Dr. Livesley, portrayed by Dr. Bunsen Honeydew, and his assistant Beaker. Aboard the ship, the trio meet the cook, Long John Silver, who they come to befriend and trust, despite their cause for concern when they see that he has one leg. The first mate, Mr. Samuel Arrow, portrayed by Sam the Eagle, introduces the captain, Captain Abraham Smollett, portrayed by Kermit the Frog. Captain Smollett becomes wary of the crew after roll call, believing them to be untrustworthy, which isn't improved when he learns that the cook, Long John Silver, hired them. When Gonzo and Rizzo are tortured for the map's location by 3 of the crew, the 3 are locked up and the captain takes the map from Jim to keep it safe. Silver is able to trick Mr. Arrow into taking a rowboat out to sea, stealing his keys in the process and telling everyone he died. During his memorial, Silver frees his men and gets them to steal the map. Jim overhears Silver's plan and informs the captain, but Silver kidnaps Jim as they set sail for the island themselves. Captain Smollett, Gonzo, and Rizzo go off to save Jim, but some of Silver's men stayed on board and take over the boat while the captain is away. The captain, Gonzo, and Rizzo, now on the island, are kidnapped by a tribe of native pigs, led by the captain's old lover, Benjamina Mina Gunn, portrayed by Miss Piggy. When the treasure appears to have already been taken, Silver is briefly betrayed by his men, during which he saves Jim, letting him go, and he shortly after brings his crew back together. Jim frees Gonzo and Rizzo where they meet up with Mr. Arrow, alive after all, who then reclaim their ship from the pirates. The captain and Benjamina are then taken by Silver and tied up for information about the treasure, to which she tells him, but the 2 are saved by Jim and the rest. This leads to a final sword duel against the 2 groups, at the end of which the pirates are taken as prisoners and the treasure is claimed. That night, Silver discovers that he still has Mr. Arrow's keys and escapes with the treasure. Jim sees him and confronts him, but neither of them can bring themselves to harm the other, with Jim agreeing to let Silver get away. However, the rowboat is unsafe and Silver becomes stranded on Treasure Island. To begin, let's start by talking about Treasure Island itself, or rather, the novel the film is based on. Now, I can't speak too much about the accuracy of the adaptation, as I've never read the novel, and the only adaptation I've seen is Disney's Treasure Planet. But I know that a large part of the story is the relationship between Jim Hawkins and Long John Silver, so let's start there. To be honest, I was a bit disappointed with this part of the story. Ironically, I have quite the opposite problem to this as I did with the Muppet Christmas Carol, where here, I feel like this makes for a great Muppet movie, but not so much a great Treasure Island adaptation. Starting with Jim Hawkins, he makes for a perfectly serviceable protagonist. I very much agree with the decision to make it a human actor rather than having the role split between Gonzo and Rizzo, as that would have muddled the story even more in my opinion. As is, however, I feel like Jim is very much dependent on Long John Silver. Other than that, his relationship with Gonzo and Rizzo is rather unused after the first act. I feel like his sense of adventure that he got from his father before him, I like his sense of adventure he got from his father before him, but I don't know, it doesn't really do much more than that, and feels a bit basic. Long John Silver, on the other hand, is easily the most praised thing in the film. To a certain extent, I can understand why. Tim Curry's performance is definitely a large part of this, and while I absolutely think they could have gone further with it, he is sufficiently Muppety. The relationship between Silver and Jim, though, I feel like went rather underdeveloped. As I said, the Muppet stuff really seems to take center stage here, which leaves this core relationship rather bare bones if you ask me. As is, it still gets the job done, but I definitely would have enjoyed more scenes of Silver and Jim bonding to really sell the story. Instead, the scene where Silver saves Jim feels more like something that happened because that's how the book happened, rather than because it made sense for his character. I think the biggest reason for this is that most of their interactions are to further Silver's plot, rather than any actual bonding scenes, where we see Silver start to actually care for Jim. The one exception is where Jim tells Silver about his father who died when he was young, in a scene that is actually pretty good, but I feel like they should have included more of it. In the final confrontation between Silver and Jim, I do like how neither of them can follow through with their threats to stop the other, and in that moment, their friendship definitely feels real, but it absolutely could have benefited from more screen time together. Overall, I wouldn't say it's a bad adaptation of Treasure Island, but I would be surprised if it were the best. Now, let's discuss the use of the Muppets in the film. Overall, I'd say they are used pretty much perfectly in the film, with the one odd thing being that some of them are playing characters, while others are just playing themselves. Nonetheless, they lead to a lot of really funny moments, the majority of which got some good laughs from me. Gonzo and Rizzo provide as good companions to Jim Hawkins, with maybe a bit too much overbearing over Jim, but definitely a step up from the Muppet Christmas Carol. Kermit playing Captain Smollett is a really unique choice that paid off well, with him bouncing off Sam the Eagle as Mr. Arrow surprisingly well. Miss Piggy as Benjamina is a pretty unique choice, with the character in the novel actually being Benjamin. I feel like this does lead to some odd moments, however, as she doesn't really have all that much screen time to ever really establish a relationship between her and Captain Smollett, or anyone really for that matter. Fozzie Bear as Squire Trelawney is a pretty funny character. He has a reoccurring joke that really isn't all that funny, but it makes me laugh nonetheless for some reason. Dr. Bunsen Honeydew plays Dr. Livesley, and Beaker is just there as Beaker, and they're a welcome addition, but they don't have that much to do, and pretty rarely contribute to the main plot. On top of all this, I like the addition of the other Muppets aboard the ship, which also lead to some consistently funny moments. I like the entire roll call sequence with all the absurd names and people among the crew. I like the joke with the Electric Mayhem where they are confused as to which side they are on because they're just there to play music. It's kind of funny and also really random when Sweetums decides to betray Long John Silver and join Captain Smollett. Statler and Waldorf are, as always, really funny, this time serving as the figures on the front of the boat. A part of me wishes we got more of some of the original Muppets cast, with characters like Rolf the dog being put to the sidelines and never even speaking. But honestly, the new Muppet characters do bring a lot of fun with them, making me not mind all that much in the end. At the end of the day, this is another great installment in the Muppet franchise, full of fun humor and wacky energy, and it's fun to see these Muppets in a Treasure Island setting. Finally, let's discuss the music in the film. There are 8 songs in the film if we count the song that plays during the credits, which was specifically written for the film, so I suppose it should count. Starting with 8th place, we have Boom Shakalaka, which fits into the same category as Rat Scat from the Muppets Take Manhattan, where I have to wonder whether or not it even counts for the purposes of the ranking. But I did include that song, so I might as well include this one too. Not much to say, honestly. It's a perfectly fine chanting that plays when Captain Smollett is shown the leader of the pigs on the island. In 7th place, Cabin Fever, which is very out of place in my opinion. There is something likable about how all over the place it is, and how it switches styles, but is otherwise random and not important to the story. In sixth place, Love Power, which is played during the end credits. Perfectly good song, but not really my type of music, I think. On top of that, it's not really a song I'd expect to come out of the Muppets. It's not even sung by one of them, making this not something I'd purposely seek out. In 5th place, A Professional Pirate. For being Long John Silver's only song, I really was hoping for more, to be honest. It has its good parts, but is a bit too reeled in, and it feels like they could have gone a bit further with it. In 4th place, Sailing for Adventure, sung by the characters as they set sail. Pretty fun, with not a whole lot more for me to say about it. It is nice to see the crew being rotated through as the song goes on, and we do get a bit more of Jim and Silver, which is always a plus. In 3rd place is the biggest surprise for me personally, Love Let Us here, sung by Kermit and Miss Piggy as they are dangling off the edge of a cliff and Long John Silver finds the treasure. A surprisingly nice song, with scenes of Kermit and Piggy flowing naturally between scenes of the pirates celebrating their victory. In 2nd place, Something Better, another surprisingly great one to me. It's sung by Jim, Gonzo, and Rizzo as they yearn for adventure. Rather simple and generic at times, but nonetheless a fun time with a good main verse. In 1st place, Shiver My Timbers, which is a really great way to open up the film. A lot of darker themes for the Muppets in this song, which is perfectly balanced out by the use of Muppet animals singing. I'll be honest, I was a bit disappointed with the selection of songs in this one. A lot more songs that feel included for the sake of including another song, rather than out of a need for one. Still, it's mostly good songs nonetheless, but not ones that really stick out in my mind all that much. I give Muppet Treasure Island an 8 out of 10. The film isn't perfect. Indeed, I think it might be my least favorite of the Muppet films thus far, but it is nonetheless an enjoyable time. I do wish we got to see more of Jim Hawkins and Long John Silver, but at the end of the day, I can totally see myself coming back to this one. It's not without its flaws, but I can still wholeheartedly recommend it. Well, that's all, folks. I hope you enjoyed, and feel free to share any opinions you had on the movie. A new episode releases each week, so stay tuned to see which film I cover next. And in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.